So, welcome. We are your hosts. I'm Chelsea,
I'm Gina.
and we would like to welcome you to World versus Fiction. Okay, and we're live. So, technically, this is supposed to be our first Sci-Fi Fantasy Tuesday post, but our recording area got kind of hectic yesterday, and we had to delay it for a day.
Exactly. It is hectic at all times in this house, and there's not enough coffee to fill that void.
Nor is there a quiet spot to just lock the door and record, unfortunately. So.
All right. So when the tornadoes come in, and tornadoes meaning the two little ones in the household, that's it. Let's see. Today we're going to talk about Jurassic World, which is the sci-fi portion of it. I mean, we generally lean towards fantasy. Both you and I do, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, we went to the Fan Expo in Dallas this weekend, and unfortunately Chelsea missed it because she was sick. But they had some great showings of both books and movie folks, and this year, okay, I'm straying off into a little side thing, but I got to see Elijah Wood, Sean Astin, Dominique Montague,
Monaghan.
Dominique Monaghan, and you're so messed.
Billy Boyd.
And Billy Boyd, thank you. Anyway, I got to see them at their panel because it's the 20th year anniversary for Lord of the Rings. And that's pretty amazing. So to get to see all four of them all together in the same place was interesting.
You can imagine how upset I wasn't missing the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was thinking about it. And we actually because we were in Texas and they have to do fun things, they did a lot of fun things with the cast. And one of the things they did was they had them dance, a line dance. They taught them how to dance a line dance. And it was hilarious watching those four dance. They loved it, though. They absolutely had a blast, Texas style. So that was fun. But what I was going to say about that is that it's 20 years. We're talking 20 years.
God, I feel old.
Yeah, I know. That's like probably one of the first times that I just really... I've always been a sci-fi fantasy person, but Lord of the Rings, I remember going to the theater, and I had not read the books, the first movie. And I read The Hobbit when I was younger, and my brother had gotten me into that one because I'd also read The Chronicles of Narnia, which C.S. Lewis was a contemporary of J.R.R. Tolkien. So that made me want to read The Hobbit. But I was too young to really appreciate The Hobbit at the time. So, and I guess you can understand that too because you were a little bit young to really appreciate.
How old were you?
The first time I read The Chronicles of Narnia, I was 8. And the first time I read The Hobbit, I was probably 10. Then I reread The Chronicles of Narnia at age 12, and that was much better. Then I was crazy about it, and I read it probably a jillion times. And then I read The Hobbit when I was, in that area too, where I wasn't quite ready for it. So then, after we watched that first movie, I went with Herman to it. He had already read the books, my husband. And I said, I am so confused. This movie is a great movie, but I'm very confused. It's obviously written for fans of the book. And so he said, you're going to have to go back and just read the books because there's no way I can totally explain to you this entire show in one sitting. So I went back. I remember because I went back and read them when my third child was a baby. She had just been born. And so I would sit there and feed her and read The Hobbit, then The Lord of the Rings. All of the books of Lord of the Rings. And I just sat there engrossed because I realized, man, I missed out. Now I can understand them a lot better. But that was our foray into the whole fantasy world of Lord of the Rings, and
That was your four-way. Mine was after the first DVD came out. I remember that because it was the very first DVD we'd ever gotten, and it was Fellowship of the Ring, and it was my first time ever hearing about it. And I wound up scared out of my wits, and I had nightmares for like 3 months.
she only hid behind the couch during most of the...
Well, actually, I was hiding underneath the other desk on the other side of the room.
I just remember hiding it from it, and you didn't want to watch it, but you wanted to watch it. And you didn't want to watch it, but you wanted to watch it.
And then I was walking past the kitchen while they were discussing the books, and that was the first time I realized that it was actually based on a book. And at that point, I told them, forget the movie, let me get the books. So I stole the books, basically. And I read them about 3 times in the course of a week, and Dad didn't believe me.
Oh, she's
And he had to give me a pop quiz just to realize, oh, she did read these.
Yeah, that was during that time that we didn't realize you were a speed reader and that you could literally consume stuff in like a matter of minutes.
Yeah, I got in trouble because of that sort of misunderstanding thing with a different series, but different story. But anyway, yeah, so I was about 9 when I read them, and I actually fully appreciated them, so...
Oh, the drama of having a child much smarter than you.
I'm autistic, okay? My brain just picks up patterns differently than everybody else's does.
Well, you definitely picked that one up, but what made you want to sit down with the movies again was after we watched the behind the scenes.
The behind the scenes for the Two Towers, actually. We'd gotten the extended edition of those. And we had, of course, Dad had watched the first 2 discs, which had the movies, of course, but then he up and decided one day, okay, so I'm tired of seeing everybody hiding behind the couch. What are these last 2 discs? So he picked one and put it in, and that's what really got me interested in the movies. And there we go. I've been a Lord of the Rings geek ever since. So
yeah, and movies in general, actually. You've been consuming more of the fantasy genre.
Yeah. It also led me to want to be either an actress or a writer. I was told very early on that being an actress would be out of the question, so I switched over to writing.
Oh, well, you know, I was an actress too with great aspirations when I first got married, but that changed very rapidly after I had children. But yeah, we have had definitely a love affair with sci-fi and fantasy for years. It wasn't until recently that you even liked Star Wars. So until the last 3.
Yeah, sequel trilogy got me into Star Wars, so...
Yeah. But Jurassic World, which you did not see...
I've only seen 1 movie out of the whole Jurassic World franchise, and that was the first Jurassic World movie. So...
Did you watch that in film school?
No, I went to I got dragged to the theater with you guys.
For real? I don't remember that.
Yeah, y'all dragged me to the theater to watch it.
Oh.
I distinctly remember that because I remember you sitting there complaining about the fact that the main actress was running around in high heels the entire time.
Oh, that was the Jurassic World, not Park, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Actually, that was a really good one. I liked it.
Yeah. I also thought it was funny reading afterwards that the actress herself was the one who insisted on her character continuing to wear the high heels because she wanted to prove that she could run around and do everything in high heels.
Oh my gosh. Silly.
I mean, it worked.
Well, they did the first one, of course, and then the second one came out, and that's when all the dinosaurs kind of got released into the world at that point when they were trying to sell them underground, and then they ended up getting released. And so now the third movie that just came out, which I think is the ending of all the Jurassic...
It's supposed to be the ending of it, according to all the promotion.
Well, I was interested in what became of this because... there were so many negative reviews on this last installment, and so I went to the movie, of course, with great intention of watching the ending of an era of Jurassic Park / World, and I actually was not disappointed. I know a lot of people were saying, and their main thing was that it was boring. Well, it sort of was. Like, there wasn't anything majorly exciting about it like it was in that first movie. Jurassic Park was they did a lot of things cinematically that had never been done before, and it freaked everybody out. Of course, they were virtual recording and stuff like that, where it just really brought the world to life. That was huge back when it first started, and also just the writing of it was really good. But I honestly thought that why they did this last one was to wrap everything up, and I thought they did it just fine. People were saying, well, it's bad writing, and there wasn't a lot of good dramatic beats and that kind of stuff to it. I honestly think it was just a rehash of what they had already done in order to wrap it up. So,
well, just based on what I'm hearing from you and what I've heard via YouTube, because YouTube likes to suggest a lot of movie review things to me, is that it sounds an awful lot like what people seem to complain about in regards to Kong Skull Island from that franchise, the Godzilla and Kong franchises, which is that the movie, which I only recently watched, is a lot more focused on the human characters versus the monsters.
right.
Basically. And so everybody goes in wanting just the monsters, and instead they're getting the human story. So that's the part where you wonder exactly how focused are they on the story, or are they just focused on like getting freaked out and action and stuff like that?
Well, I think that they were grappling with questions of bioethics in this one, like they were in all of them. I mean, what's that big quote that is, we kept asking how
If we could, but never asked if we should.
Yeah, and that question comes back again into this area, but instead of saying if we should bioengineer things, it's if we should eradicate the things we bioengineered when we decided that they were going to be dangerous. Because now that they've brought these animals to life, it's kind of like the same story behind most sci-fi things when they start dealing with AI. If you created this robot and then it becomes sentient, is it now human, and does it have the rights of a human? Does it have the rights of a sentient being? And I think they did the same thing.
What's that movie with Robin Williams, Bicentennial
Man? Yeah.
Because wasn't that like the major plot?
Yeah, it's been the major plot with several things. I mean, what's that? The Will Smith movie,
iRobot.
With iRobot, they ask the same question. They ask that a lot of these things, and the crazy thing is that we're getting to the place in our society and our creations that we're actually having to ask those questions honestly. I mean, Star Trek did it way back with Data. Is Data actually a human, or is he a robot? And so we've grappled with that idea ever since technology was starting to advance to a higher level. But now we're getting to the place where we really have to ask that question. But it's not just about robots, it's about genetic engineering. And that I find fascinating, because until recent years, we weren't able to do quite as much with bioengineering as we can do now. I mean, they can literally create an entire new species in a fake womb and grow it to birth. I think I read an article, I have to find that article again, but this was last year, I read it, that they had been bioengineering life in a fake womb, but they had never been allowed by law to actually birth it, let it actually live.
This was in
afterwards.
like Japan?
Yeah, so
some
they
Asian
passed
country?
either Japan or China, I'm not sure which one of those two countries, had passed a law this last year that made it okay for them to birth these creations. And so I was curious to see what's going to come of that. I'm going to do a little more research. I'll get back to you on that to see what has come of that since they passed that law. Because they had gotten it to the point where they could get them viable up into birth, and they were just trying to see if they then afterwards could birth these things that are genetically engineered in a lab. So there comes back to this Jurassic World question. Okay, now that we've done it, we've done the deed, we've made the science, and the science works of creation, then what are we ethically bound to it? So I figure we discussed that the ethically bound to discussion in Jurassic World, which they come to the conclusion that, hey, we've already birthed this thing. They figured out a way to reproduce themselves. And now we've got them living amongst humans again, which they were never intended to do because they had died out long ago. So the question was, these things have come back. Is it what killed them off in the first place? We still don't even know that true answer. I mean, we have theories, obviously, about a cosmic comet or something hitting the Earth that wiped out everything. Nobody really knows exactly what got rid of the dinosaurs, do they?
I don't think it's ever been proven.
So that brings up the question of, okay, so why did they die out? Was it something...
Was it just a natural process of the world? Because, I mean, things go extinct naturally.
Right.
All the time without any sort of outside interference.
Right.
So was it just a natural cycle or was it something external that came in?
And if it was a natural occurrence...
What natural occurrence was it?
What natural occurrence? But also, like, we have this grappling look of everything should stay natural. Whatever the natural world decides to do, that's good. That's what we should follow. So if we were looking at crops, we should use the old seed and not genetically modify it because it is within the natural way of doing things, and you go mucking around with it, you could create something bad. So biblically, it's in there because according to Genesis, the sons of God came down, saw the daughters of man were beautiful, and they procreated with them. And then God got really upset about that and wiped out the whole world with a flood. So those stories are there where if it's not part of the natural world, you shouldn't muck around with it. But the question is, should we? I mean, like, that's a huge question.
Of course, this also leaves the question of how do you tell the difference between what's natural and what's external? So, which is a question that everybody's grappling with in regards to some things in the world, like now, especially when it comes to like animals and plants and
can you genetically
all sorts of things. Like at what part do we step back and say, okay, so this is not an external thing that we're doing necessarily, because that's the big external debate that everybody goes off of is human interference. How far exactly do we have influence on any of this? That's the mega question that's really bandied about, sometimes very vehemently, all over the place. And which things are just the natural way of things. And then also on top of that, like, at what point do we have to step in and interfere somewhat? Or do we at all?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question because that's, I think, what the distinct difference between humans and other animals are, is that our ability to create. So I guess the Bible calls it, we're created in God's image, which, what is God's image? It's a creative presence.
Well, the way I put it is that humans are the only creatures with the ability to step in and do the job of any other creature on the planet. And that's sort of how I phrase it, is that most animals, plants, whatnot, they're designed for one job and one job only. Humans are designed to do pretty much to step into the place of any of them.
Wow, never really thought about it.
Like, for example, let's take beavers. Beavers are designed to build dams. They block up rivers. They create lakes, which can create like side streams or rivers. It can create water breaks in the trees to help slow down wildfires and stuff like that. Provides fresh water for other animals. If an area does not have beavers, humans have the ability to build dams as well and do the same thing.
Wow, that's profound.
Well, there's also a debate happening in California right now where there used to be a whole heck of a lot of beavers, which got overhunted out of the area. And now there's this huge debate on whether to reintroduce beavers or not.
So So let the natural world do what it's meant to do. But the thing is that if you, because things change so rapidly, if you, for example, do what happens here in our hometown, which is have an overpopulation of deer with an underpopulation of predators for those deer, besides us, we wipe out more deer yearly than anybody else with their
Mostly by
etc.
Mostly by accident.
Oh yeah, by accident. I mean, it's totally by accident. But and the fact that they're dumb enough to jump in front of a car and not realize what it is. Although they've gotten smarter since they've lived around humans, they do sometimes wait. But yeah, if we're not in that area, it will wipe out an entire ecosystem of overpopulation. So like, then is it our fault that the predators are not there? Is it nature's fault? What all is, we're very dynamic worlds, and so we all are interrelated, and there's checks and balances, and sometimes we interrupt that balance, but sometimes it's not even us that interrupt the balance, it's something else. I remember having a conversation with one of my friends who had a degree in marine biology, and she was talking about how this certain starfish that they had in abundance in the harbors were disappearing, and they were trying to figure out what was making these starfish disappear, and they didn't think it had anything to do with people. It had to do with like something that fed on them or something in the environment of the water itself, and they were trying to figure it out, and they couldn't figure that it was anything to do with people. The world naturally changes, and look at the climate's changing even now, and we're surmising whether it's us or whether it's something else or whether it's just a natural progressive. So what is the job of humans? If we can stop a progression, should we? If we can introduce something back into the environment, should we? And I think it's a matter of knowledge as to what the repercussions of those things are. And that's been the human problem forever. Like, we don't have the knowledge of understanding what the final consequences of our actions are.
That's the thing. Humans have the ability to figure that out. We just usually don't. We just usually don't use it.
Yeah, or we just don't have enough information.
That's the point. We have the ability to go out and find the information. We just don't.
Yeah. Well, we're so interested, again, in the same Jurassic World question, with whether we can and not whether we should. Because whether we should is not just a bioethical question. It's also just a knowledge question in general. If we should if we understand all the repercussions. If it's going to be beneficial. If it's not going to be beneficial and it's for our own greed, then I think that's where we should draw the line. That's the bioethics in it, I think. And should they have created the Jurassic World? I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. I think given what the understanding is, it would be cool to do that as long as we understood and planned for the consequences of that.
That's the big thing. Never assume there's not going to be consequences.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the mathematician, What are the consequences? And that's where you ask the AI, who end up being smarter than us. So,
actually, this whole thing is kind of funny because there is an original novel that I've currently got in the planning phases that touches on bioethics as well.
True.
Which I'm going to try and avoid going into details on, but it does involve a bit of genetic mutation in regards to the main characters. Not them doing it, but it being done on them.
Well, the thing is, we're asking the question of, we're trying to heal certain things, we're trying to prolong life, we're trying to cure diseases, etc. And we've dabbled in and we've jumped headlong into a lot of different genetic choices, a lot of different AI choices like nanobots and all kinds of other things, and we're trying to get to an end result without asking the question of what are the side shoots of that. And I think that when I took a bioethics class, that was one science class that I took at Kansas State University, many, many years ago was bioethics, and I found that a very fascinating subject, and I could probably take that class a jillion more times now and have it completely different in scope than what I was involved in. I mean, back then we were talking about topics like euthanasia and things that today are like in the past. We were talking about past things that people talked about and had no vision of what was actually going to come in advancement. Because back then, I didn't even have a personal computer. So you can imagine how AI has changed the scope of bioethics and the questioning. And also genetics, we had not studied the genome to the point that we have now.
Dolly the clone sheep didn't exist.
Exactly. I mean, there's so much that has changed over the years, and what is making it interesting is that we do have access to a lot more knowledge than we did before through the internet and through being able to share ideas. I still feel like we've gone backwards a little bit in that, because there's a lot of stuff that people don't want to get out there. People being, I don't know who the people are, because there's always this arbitrary understanding of who those people are who are trying to keep information from everybody.
And I mean, we briefly discussed that on Monday's post, talking about Loki and Norse mythology and how little information there is about the older myths versus the altered versions that we're more familiar with today.
Yep. And how it's gotten lost. But as far as for that is concerned, it became out of trend. And so a lot of knowledge was lost. And so it's got to be the same way in even important information that we should know today. Like, for example, genetics of crops. Mm-hmm. They've so gone into genetically modifying crops that they have lost the ability to see the beauty of the genetically diverse crops that we had prior to GMOs, and also to understand what could potentially happen if those genetic lines ended, right? So I'm not of the camp to, might get into controversies here, I'm not in the camp to say that genetically modified crops are in essence, in theory, a bad thing, but in the hands of the wrong people, it could be very bad, which they do discuss in Jurassic World, the third one, because the whole point was that they genetically altered these locusts to come in and eat non-genetically modified crops, so that the genetically modified crops would be able to take over and say this is our genetically modified crop, we're making all this money off of it, see how those locusts came in and ate all the other ones, y'all have to buy our seed. That was greed right there, and that's where we're coming down to in our bioethics. So it does discuss that, and also it discusses the black market for dinosaurs and the genetics of selling them underground so people for nefarious purposes. And I think that's what it comes down to us, because humans have to have some kind of foundation to their morals and ethics, and that's where religion comes back in again. So unbounded, the human spirit can go anywhere. So there is something to be said about it being bounded in some way, grounded in some kind of ethics. So,
well, I mean, what else is there to say on that topic? I mean, religion serves purposes, and part of that is creating moral standards, moral guidelines, I guess, for lack of a better term, not even tied to a deity of any sort, but serves as a baseline for certain moral guidelines, which is something that every religion has in common.
Some have been worse than others, like when the Israelites went into the new land that God was giving them in the Bible, there were a bunch of different religions in there that God said, these people, when you go in there, you wipe them all out because they are just wicked. So apparently their ethics had some pretty horrible foundations, which means that not all things are created equal in terms of ethical boundaries. So I know we in the United States grapple with whether or not we are morally superior to other cultures. We grapple with being freedom-loving and not having any boundaries, which is both good and bad, I think.
Well, the thing about it is, like, what boundaries?
Yeah. I think we're in a middle of a revelation of what boundaries now, because so many people in the United States are no longer bound by Judeo-Christian ethics.
I'm not even bound by anything at all.
Yeah, that's a problem. So it goes back to that. But then you have the other side where it's...
There needs to be at least some boundaries. And then there's the people who are saying we need all the boundaries. So,
yeah.
Like, where's the middle ground? Where's the line we draw in stone?
Right. That's a difficult question. I can't even begin to answer that question in even, 100 podcasts. So, but it would be interesting to grapple with a little bit of that information. But
maybe a live stream sometime later.
Yeah, then other people can put their 2 cents in it, because there's a lot of smart people out there. There's a lot of people that will probably have to say, and we'll have to agree to disagree. So, but yeah, Jurassic World, I thought, was just an ending, like a wrapping up of the others. It left with a question, and it didn't really give an ending point, but at the same time gave an ending point, because basically the whole premise of that is, okay, now we've introduced these dinosaurs, they're all in the world now, how do we live with them? We made the mistake, how do we live with the mistake? Or was it a mistake? Because at the end of, well, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but you see that it could have gone positive or negative. It could be, and was indeed, positive and negative in scope of having these animals in the world. So, and I think that's what we'll end up finding. So I didn't have a problem with it being slow or having it nostalgic. I love the nostalgia. I mean, it's like if a fan club went through Twilight, the series Twilight, and they told them all the stuff they wanted to make sure that they put into the other movies, and so they made those movies based on all the fan suggestions. That's what you got in Jurassic World #3. It's like, this is for the fans of the whole series. It's for them to look back and go, ooh, ha, like the iconic scene, which I'm going to give you this tiny little spoiler, because if nobody noticed it...
It's in the TV spots now that I get up on YouTube.
Oh, good. So. If you didn't notice that in that final battle, nobody was paying attention. We were sitting in the theater, and that final battle, the Tyrannosaurus Rex walks past this little circle satellite thing, and his head frames into the logo of the Jurassic Park. And you look at it, and it's like, oh my gosh, that was the logo right there for like half a second. And I started bursting out laughing in the theater, and everybody was looking at me funny, and I couldn't understand what was going on. Why are people not getting it? Like, that was the logo of Jurassic Park. And so
something to get like 30 minutes later.
Yeah, Abby's like, at the end, she's like, why were you laughing? Nobody else in the theater was laughing. What's going on? And I'm like, you didn't see the logo? They literally just shoved that logo right in there just with him passing through that ring. And she said, oh, I see. But those kind of moments were all over that movie, and I thought it was hilarious. I liked it. Okay, I'm just a nerd, but I thought it was fun. And
that tends to be our MO, right? If the internet says you must hate it, we end up loving it.
Oh, yeah, I think that's what it is. But personally...
Star Wars, for example.
Yeah, the last 3 of the Star Wars trilogy. I loved it, and... okay, I didn't love episodes 2 and 3, so we can get down to that another day, but that's why you changed it for me.
And by episodes 2 and 3, we mean episodes 2 and 3 out of 1 through 9.
That's right.
Not 8 and 9.
Right, exactly.
We mean actual episode 2, Attack of the Clones, episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
Anakin Skywalker and Padme. It's just cringe-worthy. But anyway...
Great actors... Unfortunately, their script sucked.
Yeah. Speaking of which, in the theaters, and I'm only saying that because Natalie Portman's going to be in Thor again, and I have no idea what to expect from this one.
I'm actually not looking forward to it. I've seen the trailer already.
I'm just going to watch it anyway. You know how I am.
You feel free to watch it. You let me know if it's any good, and I'll consider it.
Well, here you go, though. You know, you're not going to you don't want to watch the next Tolkien series either, and I'm going to watch it.
No.
Because, see, if Chelsea just won't watch it, that means I'm going to watch it, because we got to figure it out. How bad was it?
The big thing with me is that the upcoming Lord of the Rings now, those of you who are looking forward to it, I'm happy for you. But if I attempted to watch it, I would spend the entire time pointing out how badly they screwed up the timeline.
That's the point. Isn't that what our job is?
No.
Yes, it is.
Not when they're explicitly being told, apparently, that they're not supposed to do that.
Oh, well. Okay, well, I'm going to watch it anyway, because I got to bash it if it needs to be bashed. Somebody's got to do the hard work. Somebody's got to sit through the cringe.
If you manage to get through it without barfing, I'll be happy.
All right. Well, I shall see. I haven't even watched the trailer. I literally have not even watched the trailer on this.
I have
on purpose.
too many times.
Maybe that's what the problem is. We watch the trailer and then we make an assumption and then we don't go see the film, or we go see the film.
Well, I've actually been also looking up like all of the behind the scenes stuff, all the interviews, and all this other sorts of stuff.
That's your job.
Yeah.
Not my job.
So,
my job is to not look at anything leading up to it and just go see it with fresh eyes.
All the pictures and all the stuff, and yeah, it is no.
The problem is I am way too.
You're too forgiving
about marketing, and I know how marketing can either be really overly good, and then the movie just falls flat, or it is really, really bad. And actually, it would have been better had I just watched the movie and not taken the trailer into consideration.
That's only happened to me once, where the promotion was god awful, but I actually enjoyed the thing itself, and that was the Loki series.
Yeah, well,
that was the only time that's happened to me.
Yeah, I thought that one was pretty good, but I didn't see the trailer. But you see, that's what I do.
I didn't actually see the trailer. I didn't see the trailer either. I was just aware of all the screeching and stuff online and whatnot.
Well, that's why I intend to watch this show about Tolkien.
Not just the screeching, but also like the interviews and what the interviewers were asking versus what everybody was responding with, and what the associated cast and crew members were posting. Yeah, someone needs to teach them how to promote their stuff properly, which is promote the story, promote the characters, do not promote the details.
Yeah, do not promote how it fits in with new trends. That's just so annoying.
If all you're doing is promoting how much it fits with a trend, you're basically saying that your story sucks, your characters suck, everything about it sucks.
But you should see it anyway because it fits in with the trend.
Yes. So
I hate that. Please, marketers, if I could tell you one thing from us fans, don't market the trends. We are tired of trends. We're tired of seeing trends. We're tired of being preached to trends.
Now,
we just want to see a good movie with a good story and good characters and good world building.
Now, if you happen to have stuff in there that fits in with some sort of trend, that's fine. Just don't promote it.
Yeah, just don't market it. We're just tired of seeing it. That's not what we're there for. So, we want to see a good story, good characters, good world building, good thought-provoking things. If we want to do thought-provoking, great. If we do not, then it better have a good story to go along with it, too. So
this goes double for Amazon and your Lord of the Rings thing. This is part of your problem. Mm-hmm. Is you've already had your people announcing that all of your decisions were based on trends instead of Tolkien. That was your first mistake.
Oh, yeah. That could really mess people up who are serious fans of the books.
It already has.
Yeah, so, see, and I'm doing it because it's my job to go and look at it and bash it or praise it, one or the other. And so I'm not going to look at the trends or the promotionals. I just can't because it'll mess me up.
Yeah. So. If you're really planning on trying to get through it, don't do it.
Don't watch the promotionals.
Don't do it. Just keep track of when it comes out.
Yeah. When is it coming out? Do you know?
September. It's like the anniversary of his death or something like that.
Okay. Yep.
So September something.
All right. Well, and also, I wonder if that's kind of, besides the fact that it's the 20th anniversary of Lord of the Rings, I wonder if that's another reason why they sort of got these cast members together from Lord of the Rings as well to do a semi-promotional, because they didn't talk about it at all, and it has nothing to do with them, but it certainly helps a little bit that they're coming in at the 20th anniversary.
Well, I think that was probably a coincidence, but they've also got this. But there's also this animated War of the Rohirrim series that apparently, yeah, I just heard about it. They've been getting cast members for it. Apparently, they've got Miranda Otto, who played Éowyn in the original Lord of the Rings series. She's coming in as a narrator for the animated series, apparently. So,
Narrator, huh?
I'm mildly interested to see where that goes. It is animated, so I'm a little understandably leery because the only animated Lord of the Rings and Hobbit related things that I've seen, I hated with a passion.
That was old BBC, so we will have to forgive them for not having the abilities back then to...
You should have heard my rant about how ugly the Mirkwood elves were, which I was so upset about because they were my favorite. Anyway.
All right, well, I guess that ends our Jurassic World encounter. Jurassic World, number 3, I thought was worthy of anybody who's nostalgic for the old story and wanted to see it wrapped up and question what would happen if all that stuff on the island got out and we actually had to live with those things they created. I think it's worthy of a good thing. It wasn't scary like the old ones. They didn't make it scary. There was nothing scary about that movie.
Well, neither was Kong Skull Island. There were a couple of jump scares, but that was about it.
Yeah, it really was not scary. I mean, well, maybe it's because we've seen it all and been through it all, and the first one was...
Well, either that or it's the fact that they were focusing more on the human story versus the monsters, quote unquote.
Yeah, true. And it may be a conscious choice, too, because maybe they were trying to help you to understand the monsters better, and that they actually had humanity in themselves.
Kong Skull Island did pretty much the same thing, so...
Because they tried to make them more sentient. Blue was very much more sentient, and she was very much a mother in this one, and just reacted in the way a mother would for her child. And so did the other animals. They were just wanted to live. They just wanted to be left alone.
Typical animals.
Yeah. The carnivores reacted like a carnivore did, not out of malice, but just out of the natural order of things to survive. Unlike the previous one where the original Jurassic World, where the creature they created would kill out of sheer not knowing what the heck is going on.
That was a genetic mutation of something that had already been genetically modified.
Right, well they had put a whole bunch of things together.
It
wasn't like that in this one.
So they added a little too much humanity to it, so it went insane, I guess.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah.
Because it's got too many warring instincts.
Right.
I guess with that many things attached to it.
Right, and in this one it goes back to that original thing where humans learned their lesson in some ways and stopped trying to make them smarter, and really just they more used them than anything else, which I think is ethically wrong. But it went back to the idea of we're using it for our gain. But it also discussed, what would happen if they were loose in our world, and whether or not we are ethically bound to, once we create something that then becomes part of nature, or how will we react to that? How do we deal with that? So I thought it was good, and you can make your own decision about it, even if you found it boring. If you were nostalgic about the old ones, I think you'll probably enjoy the nostalgia that's in this movie. So, Jurassic World. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you on the platform. Send us your comments. Click our bio. Find out a little bit more. Have a great day.